And yeah, so just before we get started with today's talk, I'd like to remind you that this talk or these sessions will continue to take place every Tuesday at 8 p.m. CET, as all of you are aware because you joined on time, or yeah, just after, so that's great. And all of the topics that we cover during these sessions will be related to universal principles or divine principle, if you know it like that. And obviously this is a great opportunity for us to meet other people from different places. So I'm from London, and I can see that we've got people from Israel and Italy and Albania, Slovenia. So it's a really great opportunity to meet people from different countries and to explore these different topics together. So please continue to join and invite your friends as well, because this is something that we'd like to share with other people. So feel free to invite any friends that you may have who you think would be interested in these kinds of topics. But yeah, without any further delay, I'm going to introduce our speaker for this week. So our speaker for this week is a bit of a global citizen. She's lived in America, Asia, and now in Europe. So I'm sure she's got many interesting stories to tell. She's the mother to 3 children, aged 10, 7, and 5. Okay, so with that, I'm going to welcome up Julika Labrooy to talk about the pursuit of happiness. So could everyone please welcome her up with a round of applause?
Thank you so much. I haven't said anything, so keep your applause. No, thank you. That's very nice. Yes, so I'm gonna talk about happiness, the pursuit of happiness today. And as we are discussing the universal principles, like from what I gathered from watching the recording from last time, we will be talking about these universal principles also a bit. And so in this book of the universal principles, the first sentence of the introduction talks about happiness and the pursuit of happiness, stating that everyone is struggling to find happiness. And as my understanding is that this book is a revelation from God. So it's very, it's good to know that this is what it's talking about, but it's not only, it wouldn't be just so significant if you couldn't see this principle in your daily life happening everywhere. And so that is always good to how you can check whether something is true or not, but you can see it everywhere in your surroundings. So when you just look at advertisement, it's true that everyone is striving for happiness. On all the advertisements, everyone is always happy, right? So whether it is you buying a new toothpaste or a new insurance, everyone's always happy, right? So even though that product might not make you happy, but that is what we'd like to believe. So anyway, that sells, and everyone knows it. There would be no advertisement with someone being miserable with a certain product. Nobody would buy that, right? But we don't even have to go so far as to that. But in ourselves, what do we really want is to be happy, right? Nobody wants to be miserable. I mean, we might experience being miserable sometimes, but we're not actively searching to be miserable. So yes, so then what makes us happy? Maybe I can ask you, Anissa, what makes you happy?
Me?
Yes.
Couldn't catch well. What makes me happy? What makes me happy is seeing my family happy.
Okay, very good. Yeah, everybody, I'm sure, has a certain answer to give to this question, but generally speaking, how do we experience happiness?
For me,
sorry?
I have something to add.
Yes.
For me, when I made someone happy, I feel happy too.
Thank you. So how do we describe that in more abstract words? Is when our desires are fulfilled, is when we experience happiness, right? Jolene, you have a desire to have a harmonious relationship with somebody, and if that person reciprocates and feels happy, then you feel happy too, right? So that there is a desire which is met, and that is how we feel happiness. Or if we want something in life, that's a different word for desire. If we want something and we get it or receive it, we achieve it, that's how we experience happiness. So when our desires are fulfilled. So then next question I have for you, are desires good or bad? Maybe Christian, I don't know how to say the name, Ergel?
Yeah, you said Irgal. I guess depends on the type of desire or what the desire is, right? I mean, I can think of.
Thank you. Depends on the desire. Maya, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the motivation of the desire, if it's for yourself or for others.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One more, maybe Sarah, Thomas? Last one.
Yeah, I agree. Depends where this desire comes from.
It depends on where it comes from. So inherently for you to understand, that means essentially, or the characteristic, the attribute of something. So inherently desires are good. They're coming from, they're given to us from God, they're from a good source. Imagine we don't have any desires, then we can never experience happiness because they can never be fulfilled, right? If you have no desires, then we're like animals, I guess, or something without feelings. Yeah, so inherently they're good. And so now I want to talk about short-term and long-term desires or happiness that comes from it. So let's talk about short-term first. So which desires are short-term? Like, let's say bodily desires. Our body always desires nice food to eat, sleep, just being comfortable with the body, warm, having shelter, like a roof over the head, and these kind of things. When we receive those, we're generally happy. But then there are long-term things we can strive for that are good for the body. For example, well, if we always eat foods that are very tasty and probably not very healthy for us, our health will suffer, right? So we could have our desire to have a healthy body and then choose to eat good foods, which would mean we have to sacrifice the short-term desire to have junk food, let's say, in order to have a desire fulfilled, which is long-term, which is a healthy body, for example. Or we want to become an athlete. And in order to do that, we have to, watch our diet, we have to exercise. Probably, maybe we have to even wake up early in order to accomplish that, to go run or exercise or whatever kind of thing, which is contrary to these short-term desires of the body to sleep in, to be lazy, right? These kind of things. But we can choose to sacrifice those short-term happiness or desires to be fulfilled in order to have a long-term desire, which is being strong or whatever the goal is, to be fulfilled. So we call it also delayed gratification, because you don't feel the immediate gratification. You have to wait for it, you have to work for it. Yeah, so like Olympic athletes or these people who accomplish it, or people even in that we know that we're able to accomplish something great, we admire, because we know there is the sense of work and self-sacrifice that comes with it, right? It doesn't have to be only in the physical field. It could be when somebody achieves a doctorate degree. We respect that because we know there's a lot of studying, a lot of sacrifices that go into that to achieve this long-term goal, or to become very smart or have a good job. All these kind of accomplishments that require that you have the maturity to sacrifice your short-term gratifications for a long-term gratification. Then what about more intangible things? Intangible meaning things you cannot touch, yeah, like relationships. Let's say like a partner relationship, especially you're all very young. Maybe we have some teenagers or these kind of this kind of age when that time usually like boyfriend, girlfriend, things start happening. And what desire does this come out of? It comes from the desire of wanting to be loved most of the time, more often than not, which is a short-term desire that fulfills a short-term happiness. Yeah, anyone wants to receive love or be loved, right? Even babies can do that. Yeah, they just want everything from their parents. But then imagine if both in a partnership or relationship, if both people just want to be loved, how well would that go? What do you think? How long would that go? If both are waiting for the other person to love them, well, it's not going to go very far, right? So that gratification is very short-lived. However, if you delay that gratification and work on yourself to mature your character, that you're able to love the other person, right? If you imagine two people doing that and they're both then ready to love someone or the other person, then how long would that relationship last, or how much greater would that gratification be versus the short-term, gratification? Yes, so understanding then the difference between the short-term gratification and then the long-term gratification, or in a different way, you can say there are still like some desires, even though we know or we understand that probably to a certain degree, even before I talk about that, we still have that desire to have these short-term desires fulfilled, right? And so why do we still want to pursue these? Why is it so hard to get up in the morning, even though you said you made a plan, like you want to be fit or whatever it is? Why is it so hard? Why are we not struggling every day to choose whether we should eat more or less, or what kind of foods, right? Why is it so hard, even though we understand that giving in to certain desires is contrary to giving us the long-term delayed gratification, the long-term goal that we want to achieve? So why is it like that? Why can we not just focus on one thing and then absolutely do it? Why is it so hard? There seems to be some kind of contradiction in us that pushes in two different ways, right? Yeah, it's almost like two different minds. One is wanting the short-term gratification, one wanting the long-term gratification. And yeah, so with with this question in mind, I would like to close here, and I would like to let you know that this is exactly the journey that you're on that's going to be answered with the universal principles. So please come back for more, and maybe that could be a question for the discussion groups as well. But yes, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Julika. Can we all give a round of applause to show our appreciation? And yeah, we have a really great opportunity now to ask Julika any questions quickly. We have a Q&A session now, so please don't feel shy. Oh, no, we don't. Apparently we do not. What is that, Vicky? Sorry, questions and comments. Am I mistaken? Sorry about this. I think I am confused. No question and answer. I'm sorry. Well,
oh, that's fine. If you want, that's fine. If somebody has a question, I got a little helper here. It's my daughter.
Okay.
This is Bianca.
Hi.
How old are you?
7.
7.
Wow. The middle child. All right. So yeah, thanks, Julika. She seems to be ready to take any questions. So if you have any, please take this opportunity. But if you do not have any questions, then we will get into discussion groups. But I'll just give you guys about 15 seconds to unmute yourselves and ask any questions that you may have. Ooh, who's gonna bite the bullet?
I have a question.
Thanks, Michael.
Thinking of the as you explained the short term and the long term. For example, when it comes, it's a bit rough maybe, but when it comes to, for example, drug use, right? People use that to kind of have short-term gratification. But how can somebody kind of overcome this? Because that's why they constantly get addicted by it. Can overcome this, short term happiness and kind of transcend that to long term instead of being addicted constantly on drug. For example, it's just a principle kind of question, because when people kind of don't know, there's also a long-term option. How can somebody transform from this cycle of destructive short-term happiness to this long-term, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Well, I'm no expert in drug or how do you call it? When you try to get off a drug, I forget. Yeah, the best prevention or the best thing to get off is just to prevent it basically from the beginning. So never to get addicted, because once you're addicted, it's very difficult, obviously, and then you might need more help than just yourself. You might need a whole village to support you, with professional team and everything. But it's tough. I mean, depending on how hard the drug is, really the only thing the only thing I can think of is just love from everywhere, from the whole community, as well as professional help. Yeah.
Thank you, Julika. And yeah, I'll give you guys 3 seconds to very quickly unmute yourself if you have something more to say. But if not, that will be the end of our Q&A. So thank you very much. I know that was quite a difficult question to answer, so I thought that was a very good answer. Yeah, I did not realize that drugs would come up today, and I'm sure you didn't either. But
may I add something to that answer, please? May I add something to the answer, please? Of
course. Be my guest.
So I'm a nurse, so pretty much drugs help people to numb the pain. Actually, it doesn't bring sort of happiness. Yes, of course, they give this euphoria, but the whole function of the drugs is to numb the pain that people feel. Our brain specifically, they produce this sort of substance that try to stop the pain whenever we feel it, like headache and stuff. But when we take it from outside, like this substance, basically this sort of hormone stops in our brain, and then people get addicted. And the only way to stop taking drugs, basically, in order to step away from the problems, is actually going in front of the problems and dealing with them. And this is how people get away from the drugs and all the addiction, by facing the problems, not hiding away and trying to numb them through drugs. So yeah.
Wow, what an answer. Yeah, that was a really good explanation. And I think there was a deeper message in there about problems in general, right? Not just drugs, but how all problems need to be dealt with instead of just being ignored.